Okay, we're live.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I am so excited to be here. I am here with Klique Creative in Naperville. They are a brand strategy agency, and we're going to hear all about them and their stories. But first, really just wanted to hear about you guys and your career journey and how you got to where you're at today. And I know that's a big open question, but I love hearing people's career journeys, especially because mine continues to be a zigzag. And I'm going to do something with puppies in 5 years or be an astronaut. I don't know. So.
I thought of your question earlier this morning about when did my career really start, and Stacy probably will answer this in a similar way with a different path. I think it started when I was 8.
Oh.
So my big thing was I used to love to play Office, but all by myself.
So I used to play Office too. I used to take the forms from the bank, the withdrawal forms, and bring them home and staple them.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I did the same thing. So I had a whole setup. I had an old-fashioned typewriter, and I had what I still have today, which is a piece of paper, and then was a pencil, now it's a pen. And I would line up my stuffed animals on my bed. And I would make deposits, but I would start to write stories. And I would read them the stories, and I would talk about the different businesses we were going to create. And so I'd forgotten about that memory, but I think...
I love that.
Yeah. I've never actually heard that. And I know everything about her.
And I used to I like something about The Office. I don't know why, in business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was imagining being a teacher or having a tea party.
Yeah.
I would create this office. And I think it became such a part of my persona. I had forgot this memory too, that I grew up in a neighborhood full of boys. And the boy across the street, I think that's why I never invited them, because they would be too bossy.
You're like, I'm learning this shit. You're not.
You work for me.
So this one boy across the street started sending me mail, and it would come in those business envelopes, the longer ones.
Oh my gosh!
The kids these days don't even need to know how to write an envelope.
Right.
But I loved his letters, but it was funny. He had called himself Mr. Enderplatter. That was his name. And my name,
his code name?
His name. Okay. And I didn't even know who it was at first. It just arrived that it was from Mr. Enderplatter. So it obviously assumed right there he was the boss, because he named me Janie Smith.
Oh.
And so I loved his letters, but then I started to realize, well, I'm Mr. Enderplatter. Yeah. So that's when my career started, and I think I always had a love of storytelling and business. And I know, Stacy, you want to talk a little bit about when you were younger?
Well, when I was younger, I wasn't running businesses off my bed, but I
hit my first mill at age 10.
Yes. I will probably start my entrepreneur story a little bit later than that. I actually have a degree in early childhood education, and I was a kindergarten teacher.
Bless you.
Bless me. I've earned my angel wings.
Yeah.
And I had a son very early when I was in college. So it was a great career to have when you're trying to raise a baby and finish school.
Yeah. And what was that like, if you don't mind talking about that?
It was extremely difficult, but I'm an athlete. I was an athlete in college before I got pregnant.
What type of athlete? What did you?
Soccer.
Okay.
That mindset of just, you got to get shit done. Just put your head down and just get through it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other option but to be successful at this.
Yeah.
And so even though it was super scary, I just approached it like I would a training session for soccer. Like, this is going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be difficult, but I can.
This is like sprints.
100% do this.
And what year in college was that?
That was my junior year. So,
because I had girlfriends actually in high school. I went to all girls Catholic high school.
Yeah.
That got pregnant during high school.
Yeah.
And it was like they went away for a year.
Oh.
And then came back. It was a very weird, surreal experience. Or they just went away and then never came back to the school. I think the school made it so either you've got to kind of put it under the rug.
Yeah.
Or just go away.
Yeah. So
Which I don't think is the right response.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah.
And I was 100%. I have a wonderful family and they're super supportive, but because I was so intrinsically motivated to prove to myself in the world that I can do this, I don't need your handouts or you to be feeling sorry for me. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So I took
and it's actually a blessing.
Yeah. 100%. And which is part of the reason I'm so motivated today to be exceptional at what we do, because I win. Winners win.
Yeah,
I'm going to win. I'm going to
winning.
I'm going to win at parenting. I'm going to win at teaching. I'm going to win at anything else.
So
I'm
super
trying
competitive.
To do. Super
athlete,
probably crazy competitive. If you ask my kids, I feel sorry for them sometimes. But anyway, so I was teaching kindergarten. And we got married when my son was 7. So I married his father. We didn't get married till he was 7. And soon after we got married, I was pregnant again. Had to have one legitimate.
Oh my goodness.
Just kidding. And I always felt like I had more to give. I used to pray and pray all the time for something else to do.
Aside from being
a teacher, even though I was a wonderful teacher, but when you're a wonderful teacher, you come home at the end of the day and you have nothing else to give your kids because you're freaking exhausted from taking care of 25 other little people. So I'm going to shorten this, but it's, my youngest son's was his baptism, and I designed his baptism announcement, and I got so many compliments on it, and I loved doing it. It was this weird thing. I loved how the letters sat on the page. I loved trying to figure out a perfect little clip. At the time I was clip art because I had no idea what the hell I was doing, but to put on the invitation to make it beautiful. I got so many compliments on that. And I just had this urging to start my own thing. If people like this, I can do this. Yeah. So I told my husband, we got our income tax return. I'm like, I want to start a stationery business. He's like, what the hell? I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay. So I have an amazing husband. He's always been super supportive. Yeah. So I just immersed myself in learning how to design. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was using Microsoft Publisher because I didn't know that there were even programs out there the Adobe suite and stuff. So I mastered that shit. I was a queen of Microsoft Publisher. And so fast forward a year, I'm told my husband, I'm like, okay, so now I need to go to New York. There's this thing called the National Stationery Show where you go exhibit.
Oh my gosh, I did not know these things existed.
Yeah, that if you want to start a wholesale line of products, you go there. So I spent 6 months. I built out these libraries of designs for retailers to look at, and I did it. It was $5,000, the most money I probably ever spent on anything in my entire life at that time. Yeah. And I did it. And I didn't know what I was doing really, but I didn't care because I had this gut feeling that I was going to be successful at this. And I was. And I ran a wholesale line of stationery for 3 years. And during that time, I learned how to really design on design programs. So
I like that you jumped in and started the company without really.
I don't know what the hell.
But sometimes it's better to not know.
You fake it till you make it. You get this burning fire in your belly. You're gonna. This has to be done, and you just go with that, and you figure shit out as you go.
Now, when you went to that show and it was $5,000, which is a lot even now. Were you already positive revenue on your stationery business, or were you still kind of?
No, because I was selling little invitations here and there to family and friends, but I'm like, how am I going to actually make money doing this? Yeah. And it would be to blow this out. And it's probably a lot of work too. I was doing everything. I was marketing. I was filling orders. The internet wasn't as crazy as it is back then, so it wasn't so it's all word of mouth stuff. Setting up house parties so people could buy my stuff. Yeah. It was a lot of grit. And then I'm like, how can I actually make more money doing this? It was wholesale. So that's what I did. Okay. And it did. And I had 30 boutiques that were selling my stuff. In that time, I reached out to a company. Tiny Prints at the time was a startup. It was 3 friends from Stanford that started an online stationery store. And at the time, it was literally a startup. The first time I talked to them, they were in an apartment. The baby was crying in the background. She's bouncing the baby.
Women that started?
So it was Laura. Yeah, it was 3 friends, Laura Ching, Ed Han, and Kelly Berger. And so it was 1 woman and two men. And then I was with them from pretty much the beginning. And then they ended up selling Tiny Prints to Shutterfly. Okay. I don't know how many years ago, I lose track of time, but for some amazing amount of money, millions and millions of dollars. Right. So now Tiny Prints is under the
I love Tiny Prints
Shutterfly umbrella, and I continued to license my designs to them, and also once I realized that licensing was actually a thing that you could do, that you could work one time and then get paid over forever.
Do you remember the story? You told me this, and I think it was with Shutterfly. You got one of your first checks.
Oh my God.
And you called your husband crying and you said, this is a mistake. They did this wrong because you couldn't believe you got that much money off of one design.
When I first started working with them, I think I gave them 4 designs. And also this is another thing of I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was online one day. I'm like, oh, I like their stuff. My stuff would look really good on their website. Let me figure out who to contact here. sent an email with like 6 designs and said, I really think we would be good working together.
Oh my gosh.
It's like when you don't know anybody, sometimes it helps you, because maybe I should have been intimidated.
Yeah, because right now you wouldn't
because
even
I'm designing in Microsoft Publisher. Maybe you really shouldn't be sending them designs.
I would notice notes.
Yeah. So, so then so I let go of my wholesale line a few years into that, because that was so profitable for me to just do what I love, which is designing. And then once I realized licensing was a thing that you could do, I looked for other partnerships in
So you
that
sent
arena.
in 6 designs they liked.
They took all of them. And then
you get paid.
And then I got paid every time they sold a card.
Oh my
Magic.
goodness.
It's magic. Yeah. And then just working with those big brands and realizing the impact
Of emotion too.
Yeah, and they needed you as much as you needed them too.
Well,
so-
100%, because that's what sells. You can't, a blank card's not going to do anything, but like tapping into that emotional piece of why people want to purchase your design, because it resonates with them. It's sharing a beautiful piece of their story. It's either a birth announcement or a party for something
big-
fun
big
in their
things in
life.
people's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing to me how all of these steps sort of led Heather and I
Well, and
together.
Stacy's really tapping into something really important, I'm sure you understand, is the journey of value, and especially for women and creative women.
Yeah.
And finding the value in the business world for your gifts.
Yes.
Because it's interesting how not just creatives, but especially female creatives, how people want to just take your value as their own.
Yes.
And they need it. It's an important part.
Be a
of-
nice girl and just share your
just share your
just do
gifts,
this.
and I'm not going to pay you, but I'm going to take
that
and
was
make
cute,
money
yeah.
off of that. But that was really cute and sweet. But learning the lesson of value, and then in starting Klique, making sure that everything we do has meaning and integrity, but that we get value out of it. You know, you asked us earlier, I think, what is one of your mantras? And recently, one of our mantras is, may our gifts be shared and treasured.
I saw that on social media that you guys put that. I love that.
Because we feel very
Don't
humbled.
stop at the shared.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't stop at the shared. Because we feel very humbled that we have gifts, that we're born with gifts, things that we're good at, that we have the opportunity to share them with our clients, but they need to be treasured.
Yeah.
And we need to be valued, because our goal is to give value to business. And so our business needs to have value too. And we need to be rewarded too. And as women, we often put ourselves to the side.
Yeah, totally. Guilty.
And, and we think that the reward comes with someone saying, great job, that was cute, thank you. You can sit down now.
Yeah. Like I've been speaking for free for like 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's
why
time
should
to
we-
me for me to get paid.
Right. Why should we be doing that?
Yeah.
But we have these stories we've been telling ourselves before we even realized they were stories, because people were probably telling us that. You know,
Yeah.
be a nice girl, be quiet, be pretty, do nice things. But the power goes to other people.
Yeah.
And so it's a big part of our journey. And we talk to each other all the time about putting parameters around our value and our gifts. And you do end up getting what you demand, but it's uncomfortable stepping into that space. But it's important for women in business.
Yeah, you kind of have to put your foot down at some point and not worry about being liked.
Right.
Yeah.
So we had this conversation about something just this week, and you said something to me. I had her read something that I was going to send off to a client. She's like, I loved it because it was kind, but it was unwavering.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like, you can be kind, but guess what? We are super freaking valuable. What we are about to give you, we pour all of ourselves into our brand plan processes, and what we're giving you is super valuable. So we can't do that for $1,000.
Yeah.
Because it's worth so much more to you and your business. So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to go back to your time in corporate America, but since we're talking about brand, let's talk about what it means for a business, because it's evolved for sure.
Yeah.
Even from when I started in corporate to where it is today, and why it's so important.
You know, I think the simple answer to that is it humanizes your business.
Yeah.
And you can't be in business if you're not human. And your customers aren't going to want to work with you if you're not human. But your brand is what humanizes it, and not just the look. The look is really
That's what
important.
everybody thinks. It's like, oh, the fonts, the
it's the-
color.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Everyone
that's the
thinks
last
that
thing.
it's
The logo.
It's the logo.
yeah.
But that's the last thing to come. And that really your brand is a promise. And just think about you as a human being, you live by your promise. So your business, your brand needs to live by your promise too, but you need to know what the heck that is.
Yeah.
And how that's relevant to somebody else. You know, we love this statistic, 48% of businesses, startups fail because they put themselves before their customers. So your
Yikes.
brand is really what connects to your customer. And this is another one of Stacy and our gifts is not only are we great strategists and storytellers and designers, We have a tremendous amount of empathy.
Yeah.
So we're really able to understand when we're talking to business owners and entrepreneurs, what are they trying to achieve? What motivates them? What drives them? Because we care about that a lot. We love that about people. And we want to bring that to life. We want your dreams to come to life and you to have value, especially women-owned businesses. But important in that equation is, well, what do your customers care about?
Yeah.
So we have a tremendous amount of empathy that allows us to understand what you need and want and what your customers need and want and how to bring that to life in a way that's synergistic so everybody's rowing in the same direction.
And I've experienced it firsthand working with you guys that it is absolutely magic. And I think I already know the answer, but when you have people come to you, do they typically know what their story is?
They don't. And I think what happens, a lot of people, and I can say, even when we have to do things ourselves, it's really scary when you're trying to tell your own story.
For some reason, when you tell it for me, I'm like, that's it.
Yeah. Like, this isn't what she said.
Yeah.
And it's scary for us too. So when people come to us, we have this thing we call ESP marketing. We really do try to understand where is their heart coming from? What does their mind see?
Yeah.
And we kind of sense
On an
that
emotional
level.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're really going to connect with your customers and yourself, especially as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is really hard.
Yeah.
Everyone
It's
thinks
glamorized
It's
today.
glamorized.
Yeah.
That
It's
it's
not.
It is really hard.
I'm on like my 20th entrepreneurial endeavor. So
Because you can't give it up, but you
I
keep
cannot.
getting to the point until it like takes off.
yeah.
So,
One day it'll come together.
but you have to really, because it's so hard, it has to be about what motivates you
Yeah.
and has emotion for you. And, we've rebranded many women-owned businesses, but men-owned businesses as well. And one of the things that's really moving when we do our brand interviews, because we're trying to understand what motivates them, is there will be emotional moments where they'll tear up because no one's ever
It's so
asked
personal.
them
Yeah.
these questions. And it is personal. And it's important to tap into what motivates you, what drives you, because that's going to drive your customers and your business too. And so we always say we hate when people use a lot of jargon to describe what they do.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because they don't know what else to
Mission
do.
critical. Yeah.
This is the best shopping experience ever.
Yeah.
Once in a lifetime. Because they don't know, they don't have the gifts of storytelling.
Yeah.
And maybe they're afraid to go out there and be more unique and differentiated.
And simple. Like
And
simpler
simple.
is better. Yeah.
And we hear this all the time too, and it makes us laugh. People say, well, I just want to, really simple and a lot of white space. And we say, I say, well, simple is actually really hard.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason why emotion, if you drill it down to a key emotion that's differentiated, you're going to find some real simplicity that'll carry the day and be differentiated from what your competition is doing. But you have to have courage. And it's interesting. Obviously, men have a lot of courage. We found that women have a lot of emotional courage. And so when you talk to women about their businesses and what drives them and motivates them, it seems like they have an easier time believing in that and going forward with it. Well, you can see some obstacles sometimes when you're interviewing men and feeling like, am I really going to do that? Am I really going to do this?
Oh, interesting.
And
yeah.
you kind of have to help them through that.
Maybe they're not
threshold.
used to tapping into the emotional side.
Right.
Or maybe it's not rewarded for them, and
Yeah.
maybe that's that's the flip side of it. I think a lot of times little boys are told, don't cry, don't this,
Yeah.
be strong, and men are strong and should be strong. But there is a side of to tap into what moves you and motivates you that's powerful too
Yeah.
for them.
And I think when brands get it right. Do you guys have favorite brand? I mean, I'm sure everybody says Apple, and that's where the white space simple comes in. But
This is dorky, one of my favorite brands because I use their products all the time and I just love all their messaging and their imagery is Method Home.
okay,
Just one of my faves.
I'm not familiar with.
I
them. Yeah, I'll
just
have to
feel
check
like they get it right.
Well, probably because they're authentic. They have natural products, right, that they believe in and stand behind. But then they also have a very unique way of showcasing their story that other people don't do. All the phraseology isn't coming to mind right now,
Yeah.
but it's different than you'd hear like a Tide say, for instance.
Yeah.
So those are our favorite kind of clients, are the people who are brave enough to go outside of the jargon and be
Yeah.
who they really are and be differentiated. And that's one of the things we love about, am I allowed to say the name of your?
Of course. Yeah.
About DavidaJane.
The genesis
Yeah.
of DavidaJane is,
DavidaJane.
I believe, in this
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
So your brand,
Yeah.
it's really moving.
You tell it better than I do.
Your brand is really moving to us because when
we literally started crying, and
We
I'm not a
literally
crier.
started
I am not a
crying.
crier. There was something in both eyeballs in this room. I don't.
You're
something-
like, is this water?
When we were interviewing you and your story, and I'm going to probably cry again, it was so powerful because it was so true. But beyond being true for you, it felt transcendent.
Yeah.
Like it was true for a piece of you. What you're trying to do is in every single woman, every single girl. And we felt humbled to be able to help bring that story to life.
Yeah.
So those are the brands that we help build that really motivate us because they're so authentic. And you also have a very authentic piece in you, which is you're a risk taker. So that's just beautiful. But no, that's beautiful for building your brand because you can't build a brand without risk and you can't build a brand without differentiation. And the way you're trying to seize this narrative about changing female empowerment, it's about victorization, not victimization.
Yes, I love that. I bought that domain.
is so differentiated and to stand strong in your power. And that doesn't mean everybody has to be you. You know, you're tall, statuesque. I don't have to be tall and statuesque to be DavidaJane. And I don't feel that from you. I feel it helps me be a warrior too.
Love yourself the way you are. Yeah.
I have a soft voice. That's okay. I'm still DavidaJane. I'm still badass. I'm still strong.
Yeah.
Same with every single one of us. And there's a piece of that. And you were telling your story that you said you've been shot at a lot. You've taken a lot of arrows for people. And so we wanted to convert that arrow to a piece of your brand.
Yes.
And that's now your spear. So you collect that arrow from others and you give it back to them as a powerful tool that they can use in their careers or finding space. You know, the promise, you talk about a brand and a promise. The promise of DavidaJane is to take up space wherever that is for you, whether it's at the boardroom table, whether it's in your business or in your life, that you're allowed to take up space. And when you take up space, you find what your true calling is. And so that's why we're so excited for your brand.
Thank you. Yeah. And this is not meant to be about me.
No, but
I appreciate it. No. And it's funny because now that you've collected it or, you know, synthesized it for me, everything I've been doing for my entire life, I feel almost obsessive about it because you've nailed it. And now I have my direction and I don't feel like anybody could stop me at this point.
And that's amazing. And you said earlier, you know, your career is zigzagged. It has and hasn't.
And it's curled and knotted up.
But it's also a straight line to exactly where you're supposed to be. And Stacy and I say that when we talk to our clients too, like, don't leave yourself behind. Bring yourself with you to this next piece of your journey because everything you've done is really valuable. And every story that we may have forgotten from our childhood comes with us, whether there's pain attached to that or power. And we find ways to transform that and help to transform others. So we're so excited and honored to be part of DavidaJane.
Yeah. It's almost obsessive. I don't think I've slept since. But anyway, enough about me. Okay. So why don't you guys talk a little bit about your process without giving away, obviously, the secret sauce? But I mean, you've continued to nail it. I don't know, on like 4 times we've been at bat together doing projects and brands, and it's always just amazing. So if you can talk a little bit about your process and the special relationship that you guys have.
I'll start. I'll let Heather talk more about like the specifics process. But one thing that I think is super unique about us is that for somebody like me, whose designs are so inspired by emotion and storytelling, to have a partner like Heather that's able to so beautifully articulate someone's story, it's like a dream for me because I am able to she writes the story. I can't describe to you how this happens or works, but when I'm reading her story and all the messaging and the strategy and the beautiful work she's put behind building the building blocks of your brand, I start seeing like pictures and images and colors that I know fit like the visual identity of what she's trying to get out to the world with her beautiful words. So,
which is no small feat to capture the story. Well, both. I mean, the design part's super difficult, but the capturing the story so critical.
It's so critical. We laugh because Stacy, of course, doesn't take credit for everything, but it's easy for people to say, "What a great design! I love your logo." Like, there they go again. Everyone just loves the logo.
I always like, but you don't understand that. Like, it's not. We're not just a logo factory. Like, there's so much thought that goes into like what the end result of your logo is going to be. That comes from all the strategic work that comes, before that. And I think we're really unique in the fact that we're a 2-man team, essentially. We have some helpers that come in once in a while, but we're essentially a 2-man team and we're able to get done
fast. You guys work fast.
Because we're experts. And I used to feel, we can talk about this later, but that imposter syndrome thing that you talk about all the time.
Yeah.
But we are we're experts at what we do. So what we're able to do together is incredible. Like we're as a huge agency where they have a team of 5 or 6 people and there's all this stuff to go around.
In months and months and science projects.
We get shit done because we are experts at what we do.
And I've worked at those big ad agencies, and what clients don't know is you're not getting the leadership team on your project.
Right.
You're getting the junior people,
Yeah.
and they don't know, and it takes a long time. So there's a tremendous amount of value in what Stacy and I can do together quickly. When you talk about our process, that's a really important thing. And, you know, I used to think process sounds so boring, especially for a creative person.
Right.
It is essential for any business out there, especially a startup, that you have a process that works for you and you stand by it. Because people will say, well, I don't want, you know, if you lay out your proposal and you show, well, first we start with listening to your needs and do an audit.
And I think I tried to deviate and Heather was like, no.
You
You're
can't.
not. Because it won't
We
work.
don't jump to be like, no, I just want the design, this piece at the end. Well,
gosh.
it doesn't start there.
Yeah.
And if that's what you want, you're going to get a bunch of crap because it's not strategic.
Yeah.
So first we really need to set out and understand, like I said earlier, not only what you're trying to achieve, but what your customers want and how you're different from what your competition is doing. And we also need to look at your industry. What's happening in your industry?
Yeah.
How do you fit within your industry? Relevance is, everyone says that word, but you have to be relevant or you aren't a brand. So not only do we need to understand how you're relevant, then we have to understand, well, how are you different? And that's where it gets to be so much fun. So once we lay out your strategy, then we look at, here's where the gloves come off, and we get to be as creative as we can within strategic parameters.
Yeah.
And people overlook that until about a year later and their business is doing phenomenally. And it's like, yeah, we knew that because we put this time and strategy behind it. So process is really important. And then, you know, the middle of the road is sort of that magic where you use creativity to overlay these jargony words and phrases and designs that people usually use to really convey what you're trying to achieve from a strategic perspective. What are your business objectives? We really care about business. We really care about people making money. We really care about people being successful and staying in business. We started Klique wanting to help, you know, women and minority-owned businesses be successful. We work with all businesses, but that was one of the reasons how we started. We then evolved through time, and now our target audience are entrepreneurs with hustle and heart who are kind. And we added kind because it really does make a difference.
I'm sure, yeah.
When you put as much as we do into our brand plans and creating and building your brand or evolving it, if someone's not being, they can stand up and say, I don't agree with that or I don't like that. We can talk about that's fine. But if people truly are not kind people, it'll just shut us down.
The ends don't justify the means.
It's just not going to motivate us. So we're motivated by being successful and having grit and succeeding, but we're also motivated by kindness. And that's okay. Because we want to be kind too.
Because it's our business and we can do what we want.
Nice. Well, so on that note, can you talk a little bit about your corporate career journey to the extent that you can share?
I was going to say after 8, I had a lot of funny little entrepreneurial steps along the way. When I was a teenager, my dad actually had a big corporate job. He worked for Louis Dreyfus in commodities training. It was Julie Louis Dreyfus's dad at the time.
Oh my gosh,
So that was his boss. And he was head of grain transportation. You know, when you see those flat cars, the railroad cars transporting grain and grain elevators, that's kind of what his business was about, consulting. And you had to understand global economics to do that well. So he quit that job and he wanted to start his own business doing that for businesses. So he hired me. And this is before there were websites. So he hired me to do all his marketing.
He's like, she's played Office for years. She's a pro.
And so it's funny. I remember back then.
She can get her teddy bear.
This was really something, but I held my ground. And I think I was 15 or 16. And I said, well, I want $15 an hour. And he laughed at me. And I said, I'm not doing it for less than $15 an hour. And I
like that.
Good for you.
Yeah. So he paid me that.
Which is now ironically close to the minimum wage today.
And this was a few years ago. So that was great. And my dad's company, he did very well. And I did all of his marketing. I didn't realize at the time I was creating content and developing a differentiated brand using storytelling. I was just doing those things naturally. So then in school, I studied what I loved, which is literature and English and writing. And I also double majored in Spanish because I love words and language.
Okay.
I had no idea what I was going to do with that. And then I got out of school and I found a job. And this was back when we would look for jobs in the want ads.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. I used to do that and like circle in the newspaper and get the print on my fingers.
So I remember sitting there circling and you would type up your letters and send them in the mail.
I know.
And there was this
These kids these days.
It's so easy.
And so I was doing that, and there was this one startup,
Which was an anomaly, right?
which wasn't a thing then.
Yeah.
But there was something about it. I was so excited, and it was, I guess we could call it a well-funded startup. It was the office was at 401 North Michigan. I don't know if that
probably
building right across from the Wrigley building with the beautiful office space. And I went up, and I remember just walking in, and all my fear melted away, and I felt like, oh no, I'm going to be right here. And so it was for.
Oh, that's good. Instead of feeling the opposite.
I felt alive.
Yeah.
And I interviewed with the owner. He was, I guess we would call him a Wall Street tycoon who wanted to help with privatizing education. And so he wanted to help bring up reading scores in Chicago public schools. So he started something called Success Lab.
Okay.
And then he also started this foreign language program teaching children
So
Spanish.
that's right up your alley.
Right
yeah.
up my alley.
And an altruistic intent. Yeah.
So his wife quit her job. She was the art director of Chicago Magazine. And we were like, well, how are we going to do this? So we created storybooks to teach children languages in elementary schools.
Yeah, instead of rote memorization.
Instead of just, So we just use like, what's going to be fun? How are we, but it was based on a methodology for learning language. So it was very strategic, and we succeeded. I'll never forget when Carmel Clay in Indiana, their whole school system picked up our curriculum.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So then I moved to San Francisco with my now husband and got a job at Young and Rubicam as a global advertising agency, and they had a position open in their Hispanic arm of that. It was one of the best jobs I ever got because I spoke Spanish and English, and I would help not just people think, you translate language. You don't translate language, you adapt it. So we would get a lot of the general market ads that we had to, they would say, and of course, people would say, just translate that. Well, you don't just translate that. It's not going to make any sense. Again, relevance to who you're trying to reach. Yeah. So it would help with the creatives, adapt the campaigns, sell it into the leadership at these big companies, Chevron and AT&T. And it was really exhilarating. So that was exciting. And that office was run by a woman. And she saw my ability to connect with clients and our creatives and help adapt language. And so she promoted me instantaneously and gave me a lot of,
amazing.
I became the account manager. So I did not have the experience of having a woman step on me. Yeah. I had the experience of having a woman lift me up. Yeah. And that made a huge difference to me.
Instantly, like you said.
She gave me all this responsibility, and I stepped right into it with comfort. And in my previous job too, Sarah, my partner at Language Odyssey, she gave me so much power and autonomy, and together we created something amazing. So,
and everybody talks about mentors, but I actually think you need sponsors.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. That's how I got promoted.
Yeah. She wasn't mentoring me. Yeah. She was sponsoring me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So you need somebody speaking for you.
Right.
On your behalf.
Yeah. And I'll never forget, my job in my, what's it called when they not interview you?
Performance review?
Performance review. I haven't had one of those in so long. I forget what so lucky. I remember she said two things. One is, what you do, you make it look so easy that you need to stand up for yourself. You need to broadcast your skills more, because I can't always do that for you. Yeah. So that was one. I think I think
women are bad at that.
We are bad at that. Yeah. And I still have a hard time with that. It's very uncomfortable to talk about. I've
definitely gotten better. Now I don't care. Just whoever will listen, I will tell them.
But don't you think that's good advice for young girls, is to learn to get comfortable with your accomplishments?
Yes, 100%.
And the other
my daughter, it's almost too far turned the dial. Yeah. Like she'll be looking in the mirror. I'm like, you love yourself. She's like, I do. Or she'll be like, I'm the smartest person in math. And I'm like, you know what? Great. I love that.
That's great.
Although she's 8th grade, so I'm sure at some point it's going to...
You're like, your time will come.
Yeah. Wait to the mean girl. Yeah, no.
No, but that's fantastic. And I think that's something that I hope girls now are getting that lesson to celebrate your accomplishments.
Especially with social media.
Because a lot could be torn down about you.
Yeah.
So instead, prop each other up. And I think that's one of the things that's great about what you're doing with DavidaJane, is you're finding that way to celebrate women in business, because we are not always celebrated, but we certainly have a lot to offer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing that's resonating with me right now is I don't have experience in corporate America. My experience in business was just me running a business by myself. But the idea of having a mentor or somebody that I could even reach out to talk to would have been so meaningful to me during those times because I had nobody. And like I said, the internet was not what it is. So there weren't like there weren't this like out.
You're probably reading a book or
I mean, I was crying a lot by myself and going to the library, like getting books about Illustrator, trying to figure that out. And when I'm reaching out to clients trying to like get new accounts, it was just, I'm winging it.
Yeah. Or door to door or.
I mean, it was just winging. I mean, everybody that I reached out to, there was email. I mean, I'm not that old, but it's like.
We had carrier pigeons.
Yeah. I sent the pigeon out with my portfolio. But the whole idea of, I think you posted something on LinkedIn, I don't know, a couple months ago about how women suffer from imposter syndrome.
Totally.
And feeling. And I 100% went through that. At Microsoft Publisher, do I need to say anything more? Like I felt, I knew what I was doing. Look, the result was good, but I felt like I wasn't deserving or that they were going to find me out that I really was just a teacher.
Or self-taught.
I'm self-taught. And then I was like, hold on a second. And then I completely flipped the narrative and at the time I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was bringing my authentic voice to life. So as soon as I started putting that story out, like, you know what, this is freaking amazing what I did. Why am I hiding it? I taught myself how to do all this and look at this work that I'm producing. Yeah. It's, companies are making millions of dollars off of the designs that I've provided them. Yeah. So stop feeling like you're not good enough and start sharing, like, guess what? You can do this too. You might have been a kindergarten teacher, but if you want to do something, you can do it. Yeah. And sometimes I think being self-taught is more impressive than, no, everybody goes to school. I'm not knocking going to college, but it takes 100% is an intrinsic drive to be successful at that thing if you're self-taught. And that's 100% what got me to where we are right now.
And I want to say something else about Stacy is I've worked, being in the creative field and at businesses with lots of designers or graphic designers. Totally. Stacy is not that. She is a strategic designer unicorn. And she has this immediate mastery that you can't even explain, that she immediately understands exactly what it needs to look like, who it's going to connect with, what the strategy is. And it happens like that you can't even describe it. And I think that is one of her strongest gifts.
My experience is sometimes designers can be just literal.
Yes.
Yeah. And you get something back and you're like, huh.
Yeah. But she has this whole sense of it that just happens to her. Yeah. And so
it's amazing.
But also it wouldn't happen if I didn't have Heather like steering the boat. I mean, like it's not I think I am talented, but for what we do, the storytelling piece is what truly ignites that like instant mastery for the client because
she distills it in a way
because it's what it needs to be. If this is what you're saying, these are the personality traits of your company, this is what your story is, this is who you're trying to reach, then I know in my brain what that needs to look like. Can't describe
it. We don't need to do 27 versions of it.
Yeah.
We usually do 2 or 3 just to be nice to people,
but we know what the final one is.
And I meant to talk about that because it can be so subjective and like people are like, well, I don't like pink. Well, I don't like, it doesn't matter really what you like. And,
that's why the strategy is so important because in the decision-making process, you need to have selection criteria that really you're built into the story, but the story, your hero are your customers, not you. Yeah. And so.
And you can put 100 logos.
We joke,
we still won't pick one.
We put something on social media one time. It was like trying to be funny, but it's like, if your brand were a person, would your customer want to do tequila shots with it? Like, are you connecting with them to the point where they want to hang out with you? How are they talking about you behind your back? And so it's not about you. It's about your customers, and people forget that.
Well, and the other thing that's really interesting is when we do a competitive review of that business in that industry, in that space, and look at what their competition is doing, we always start laughing because every single competitor is using like the same color palette. Yeah. And we think, well, why is that differentiated? And I think people just want to, like you said, be really literal. Well, that's what they're doing and they're doing it successfully, so I better do that too. And they don't realize there's an opportunity for distinction, and your customers are tired of that. Yeah. And it probably doesn't even relate to what you're trying to achieve strategically.
Yeah. You guys put on social media comfort zone, magic happens outside of your comfort zone. And I agree with that.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of companies try to do the Me Too or, let's stay within these parameters of
Yeah, and they don't realize
law firms or whatever. Yeah.
they don't realize your brand is built not by the customers you have, but by the ones you don't.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have them, you're probably not relating to them. It's not just about digital marketing. It's not just about reaching them. It's about when you reach them, what are you saying? Because you might reach them and damage your brand. So you want to build the people who, what do they really want from you? And chances are they want something different than what everyone else is doing. And so you need to convey that with your strategy and then bring that to life with your story and your look.
Yeah, and I think it is so meaningful because it also helps organize the company around a strategy and the employees, especially for entrepreneurs, because they tend to be all over the place and, you know, have tons of ideas. And so what you guys do helps to weave that, and then the employees know where they're
I
at.
think
Yeah.
you just said the most important thing that often gets overlooked is your brand really is built by your employees. And that's the last thing they ever look at. And so my next job I had after the advertising agency was for Visa International.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons that was an amazing job. One is I had these wonderful female bosses that, again, promoted me and gave me a lot of prominence and opportunity. But I had to step into that and do it. And one of the jobs they gave me, we rebranded the brand based on its emotional equities, which was powerful. And there's a whole story there. But they gave me this job to create a brand academy for all the employees at Visa.
Okay.
And all the different
To roll out the new.
to roll the brand, but explain to them how it's relevant to them. I was like, well, thanks. That's really easy. So,
What is their like tagline or?
oh, life takes Visa.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
So
okay.
it used to be Visa, it's everywhere you want to be. And
Okay,
that was
yeah,
all about
yeah.
its functional positioning of acceptance.
That okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
When we did global focus groups throughout the world, we realized it means a lot more than that to people.
Yeah.
It's about empowering them to live their lives the way they want. And so that life takes Visa, that's just in the US, but it's a global brand. So
But
we
it
have-
also says the same thing.
Yeah,
It like built upon
it's
it.
an empowerment. So we moved from the position of acceptance, physical acceptance, to empowerment.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
one word changes every single thing you do. So the trickiest, I believe, they gave me this assignment, but it was probably the trickiest part. It was harder than rolling out a global advertising campaign because I had to teach to every single discipline, first of all, what a brand is. How is it valuable? What's the story of our brand? And what's your story? And how do you fit into that? And how can you bring the brand to life in your job? So I did that with probably an hour-and-a-half workshop. Every single employee that was hired had to go
Oh my
through
goodness.
it.
Yeah.
Every single person, single department. But it was powerful and it was very interactive. And you could see the transformation in people to the end. And
Yeah.
there
It
was
takes time.
It takes time.
Yeah.
But you could see it in just an hour and a half. If you involve them, they had a lot of pride.
Yeah.
And they felt empowered because they'll come in and say, like the guys who worked in systems, it's our systems that make this brand. It's not, or this
Right.
company, other brand. Like, really? Because MasterCard has the exact same systems as Visa,
Right.
but we have global market share. So
Right.
let's talk about why.
Yeah.
And it was about our emotional promise. So employees, it's so important to give them a rallying point,
Yeah. Like something to be proud of.
something to be proud of, and something that they're empowered to do themselves. So if you say, okay, so if the Visa positioning is about empowerment, literally not acceptance, what can you do, whatever your job is, human resources, audit, fraud and risk, how can you change some of the, just 3 things can you do differently to keep that promise? And they write down their ideas, they're excited about it. And it really does make a tremendous amount of difference. And by the way, then when Visa, we were a membership, then we were owned by our banks, global banks. We then, after I left, went public, and it was the most profitable IPO in the history of the United States.
Awesome.
So if someone says that emotion has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the value of your business or the power of your brand, they're wrong.
Yeah.
So that was just a clear example. So a lot of what Stacy and I do is we take those same lessons about the power of emotion, understanding your strategy, but involving employees. And we did a recent rebrand where we sort of did an employee training after, and you could tell everybody felt really motivated about
And just included. Yeah.
and proud. And it wasn't that we were there to, talk at them. We were certainly a lot to share, but hearing sort of what that brand meant to them and how they could make it alive for their customers, you could tell they were really proud of it.
Yeah. The best example I have is because I worked at Motorola for almost 5 years, Motorola Solutions, and they were transitioning from being a hardware company to being more of a services and solutions company. So they split off their phone business, sold it to Lenovo, and they kept the public safety radio company. And so they did an entire rebrand, and it went from we sell radios to connecting people in the moments that matter. And it's so powerful. Even now, I get like chills when I say it.
It's so powerful. And that's such a good point. You shouldn't do a rebrand just because you want to look different.
Right.
You should do a rebrand because there's an internal shift strategic in your company.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of why you do a rebrand. They were changing their business model.
Right.
So you have to, okay, how are we going to connect with our customers?
And they just nailed it.
And they nailed it because they had the power, they had the courage to be emotive in their promise.
Yeah. And they went through some hard times financially, and now they're on the upside. I mean, they're doing amazing. Yeah.
This is the next thing, Stacy and I. Your brand is an investment. It's not an immediate return on investment.
Yeah. So I think that's important to talk about because people see it as a cost center at first.
Yeah.
Especially entrepreneurs. They're like, well, I got to build this app or whatever, and I got to put my funds there. But it's just as important.
It's just important. It's probably more important. It's the first thing to go, you know, when markets get tough, marketing budgets get cut, your brand is really above your marketing. But, because people see that as like a nice to have. They don't realize it's essential because it's the shortcut of your business to your customer. And that customer contact, especially these days, is all the time. So if you stop managing your brand, it's still in motion. And so if you're not managing it, you're probably damaging it.
Yeah.
And so when you go through the process like Stacy and I do of defining it simply but strategically that everybody can understand, every opportunity your employees have to promote your brand, they're going to build it. That happens over time. It's why it's an investment.
Yeah.
And what happens, so many of our clients, you know, a year or two after their rebrand, they start to see huge dividends. And we're like, well, yeah, we know. Mm-hmm. But to your point, it's you know, I think we're just getting to the place of we just need to say it. It's just not an immediate return on investment.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable with that, we know we bring a lot of value. We'll show you some case studies, but that's your decision. You know, we're done with trying to convince people. We can educate them.
Yeah. I would say move on. Then.
Yeah, you just move on.
Yeah. And so you guys love yourselves today. And I appreciate the value that you guys all bring, but I do want to go back to the imposter syndrome. So other than sort of shifting the narrative, what else did you do to kind of get over that?
I mean, that was the biggest piece.
Yeah.
Shifting the way I was telling my story. And I think that
It is such an easy thing, and it's totally meaningful.
It was, looking back, that seems like I'm saying it like it was so simple, but for me, it was completely, like I said, stepping out of my comfort zone because I didn't know how it was going to be received. You're kind of stepping out, getting your toes, but you don't know what's going to happen. But I felt like as soon as I did that, like the world opened up to me. I was getting asked to write blog posts for women, you know, things started changing for women entrepreneurs.
Because you were where you were supposed to be too, I think.
Yeah. And so I was, and it just, I don't know, it just gave me a better confidence about myself. So when I was reaching out to potential customers, I was proud of what I did.
Yeah.
And I liked telling my story and they loved hearing it. You know, they're shocked. They can't believe, I can't believe you're a kindergarten teacher and this is what you're
That's a cool story.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just changing the narrative. It was life changing. It was like a pivotal moment for me in the growth of me personally and my business.
Well, it's funny when I put that imposter syndrome post on LinkedIn, because I get a lot of questions about that when I do speaking and from students and things. I actually was getting mad about it because the questions and the scale. So I created a survey on SurveyMonkey where you can see where you land on a, scientifically tested scale. They all sort of are implanting that message though into you. So like, I felt like I was perpetrating,
yeah,
You're making it worse.
I was like, I was like, and I almost actually debated not even putting it out there because I'd rather just talk the way you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like people that are confident, when they walk into the room, they're not like, oh, I have to prove myself. They're not even thinking that way. They're just like, I'm awesome. I'm here. And let's not even think that way.
And I don't think I ever had the feeling like I need to prove that I'm good at this. I never, like before I really put my story out there, I never had that feeling. I wanted to do good work, period.
Yeah.
So I don't think sometimes you meet people or they'll walk into a room and you can tell they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
It's like, calm yourself, like just
be yourself.
Be yourself. Yeah. Calm yourself, be yourself, be authentic. And then, let your work speak for itself. If you do good work, people are going to recognize that. So, I don't know where we were going.
No,
with
but
that,
the shifting the narrative. So I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. I talk about this pretty openly. And once I shifted the narrative, so I used to be like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm going to forget my name. I'm starting to sweat. And now I have this weird thing where my nose runs. It has no correlation to nervousness, but my nose runs in the middle. I'm like, what? But then I shifted the narrative like, no, I get to do this.
Yeah.
I'm the nerves are actually good, positive energy.
Yes.
If I didn't have it, I would be like the world's most boringest speaker.
Yeah.
You know, so I actually shifted the way I thought about the nerves and used them as a and now if I don't get nervous, I'm like,
You're like, I'm gonna
wrong.
suck.
Yeah, I'm gonna be terrible.
I thought you inspired me this morning because I am the same way. I get very nervous. I hate public speaking, but I do know when I'm in the middle of it, I'm very calm and very much myself. But I get all that horrible nerves.
It's because you care so much.
So I decided this morning, I was like, okay, I need to define this because you kind of claimed it.
Yeah.
So here's how I claim it. So I was sitting there, same thing was happening. I'm like, okay, this is
About being on here?
This is, anything I do.
Yeah, it's just
every time I say, so I didn't prepare. So yesterday I'm like, I'm not going to prepare because that makes me nervous, but it doesn't matter. I feel nervous. So I was like, okay, I need to define this for myself in a way I can understand it the way I do storytelling. So I'm like, okay, this feeling around me is rocket fuel and it's starting to shake me and make me uncomfortable, but it's going to propel me to somewhere else and it's going to elevate me to a place where eventually I'm just going to
see how she does that rocket fuel.
Yeah, I know.
Like, who thinks of
propel and
and then it's like you get into that, you know, when you're in the middle, like right now, that you're floating in space.
Yeah.
And that's that feeling. That's a beautiful feeling.
and you're gonna feel exhilarated.
And then
when
you
we're
feel
done.
exhilarated.
until we hear our voices.
So next time when this
I have a voice for writing. That's my new.
when next time this happens, I'm just gonna think it's just the rocket fuel.
Yeah.
It's
It's a good
preparing
thing.
you for launch.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine.
And then anticipate it too.
And anticipate
instead
it.
of being like,
instead
it's
of like,
a
oh no,
surprise.
it's happening.
Yeah.
I think I might have to throw up a little bit before this. It just is part of it. So so thank you. That's our rocket fuel.
It's
now.
like the nerves you get before a big game. It's like you get those because you care so much because you want to do a good job. So it's
And even just talking about it. So then I didn't even talk about it. I was like, well, this is a secret. Nobody will know that.
nobody else must feel like
For my
this.
poor husband, who's like so.
He's like, oh, the crazy lady's
I
coming
literally
today.
would wish that I would get into a car accident. I mean, who thinks that? Like, so that I could be like, hey, sorry, I
Sorry,
can't
my
make
car
it.
is total.
This is an emergency. I can't make it. Like, how ridiculous thinking is that? But then I started talking about it, and then I would get messages from people like, oh, I experienced the same exact thing. And so talking about it is actually really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, again, I don't want this about me.
It's about all of us. We love that.
Yeah. So llamas. Let's talk about llamas. That's your-
I don't read that story.
So this is the thing about Stacy and I that people probably don't know. One of the other reasons we love working together, we cry, laugh so hard.
You guys do laugh a lot. Like, I love it when I walk in, just the energy. It's always something funny going on or some psychic reading happens.
We are always laughing. Like I can pick up the phone and she won't even have said anything, and I just start laughing and feel happy.
Yeah. Well, how did you guys meet?
Oh, so that goes back to her. Wait, let me. I'll tell you the last story, and then I'll tell you
stories.
I'll tell you. So the laughter. So we also have this really quirky, weird sense of humor that we share. And so I think if she sees something funny or I do, we both start laughing because we both have the same odd response to it. So she pulled up. We were looking for pictures for a client for a website. And we're going through, all of a sudden, she saw that llama picture.
It was
With like a hair. It has a bang.
It's a crazy llama, and it's just looking like, what the hell
has
is going
bangs.
on?
I
It
mean,
bangs, and it's shit hanging off its fur, and I was like, this is us. Like, this is us
This is how
every
we
day.
feel
Oh my
every
God.
day.
No, every day.
Like a mess, but a great mess. And so we both started laughing hysterically. So she posted that, like, this is our spirit animal.
Yeah.
And it is. So we love that llama.
I love that. And when you guys present, actually, when you come in, it's in there and it disarms people and kind
Yeah,
of
it's
sets
funny.
the
It's
tone.
funny, and it's okay to be who you are.
Yeah.
Because our humor is, and how much we enjoy just the quirkiness of life is why we like working
I
together.
think one thing too we've gotten really good at is like before when we would our first presentations, like I barely said a word. I was like, I would stand in the corner like, oh my God, don't look at me.
I don't believe this.
Well,
Oh, she refused to talk. You remember? We would give you talking points, and then you would
I'd
literally
be
hand me
like-
the microphone, like, I'm done now. I said my two things.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is
And
Stacy.
I think it's because we were trying,
Here is your logo.
Yeah, it's your logo. Do not talk to me. Ask Heather. Yeah. But I think we've gotten really good at just kind of throwing. Yes, we're still professional and we have a lot of value to what we're presenting, but I think we've gotten better at just being more ourselves.
And we give each other pep talks all the time.
Yeah.
Really, like, we're really great. They're lucky we're there.
Yeah.
Let's just be ourselves.
Yeah.
And if they
I love
don't like our
affirmations, yeah.
llama picture, then you're really, what's
You're
wrong
not
with
our
you?
tribe anyway.
Yeah, like what's wrong with you? Look at him. It's hilarious. Look at his face.
Well, I had consternation about posting so much on LinkedIn. I'm sure I annoy people, but then I hired
No,
a
I
business
love
coach
that.
and she was like, Well, if it's not resonating with those people, then they're not your people
That's
anyway. And who
exactly
cares?
it.
And why would you
Exactly.
even care?
And not everybody is your people.
Yeah.
And
No.
that's okay. That's what we discovered too. When you step out to be who you really are, you're going to attract back
Yeah.
who was meant to be with
yeah,
you.
Yeah,
Like, I swear, okay? I just do.
Same, girl. Yeah.
I can't help it. And so, like, if I'm with people that I feel like, not that if you don't swear you're a bad person, but I just, you have to be 100% who you are.
Yeah.
And
I'm not sure there's science, but I'm positive if there's a correlation of your authenticity and your success. Like the
Yeah,
more
yeah.
authentic you are.
Well, it's funny. We had some media training. I had some media training. Stacy couldn't be there. And the one thing, and I understand what she was saying, the coach said, never joke with a reporter. Because
they'll take it and spin it.
They'll like, that was her thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, holy shit.
Stacy,
I would be like, don't ever put me on an interview.
Don't ever ask me a question.
Hold on, I gotta go
because
call
can't.
Stacy really quick.
Yeah.
Because we were being interviewed the next day.
Yeah.
And that's all we do is joke.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'd be like, cancel that.
I don't want to talk to you if I can't tell. Yeah.
Well, and I knew that I was in the wrong place. I went to a Big Four consulting firm, and within like 4 weeks of working there, I got pulled into the partner's office, and he's like,
oh my God.
there's photos of you online holding guns, and
Oh my
people
God.
are complaining.
Oh my God.
And
you're like, I'm not shooting anybody.
I
don't know what to
bring
do.
the gun to work.
You're like, I was a police
Or maybe I
officer.
did.
Yeah.
But yeah, so right off the bat, I mean, how am I going to
Yeah.
ever feel comfortable if that's happening? And it's also part of my backstory and who I am.
And it's a great part of
100%.
your story. Here's the other thing too that we're learning is people always come to the table with their own version of your narrative.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's completely wrong and you have to let them go because that they're
Yeah.
mischaracterizing you.
Yeah.
You're not coming to work with guns and pointing them at people.
No, right.
You're
right,
a police
right.
officer.
And just because maybe we don't agree on guns doesn't mean that I'm wrong or shouldn't do
And
it.
the saddest thing about that story that you just told is if they knew the backstory to.
They knew it when they hired me.
But then that's even worse.
Yeah.
then,
Right,
because it's like an empowering, amazing story. Who wouldn't want somebody working for them? That's
Yeah, so I was like, well, great. I'm so glad I left my great job at Motorola to go
Yeah.
here now.
and to be not accepted.
yeah, yeah. So anyway.
So you said, how did we meet? So Stacy's card designs have a lot to do with how we met. So Stacy and I knew each other since our kids were in kindergarten. Your middle, my youngest. And they were good friends. So I knew Stacy and liked her. And I knew she had her own business. And I was kind of doing freelance writing stuff. And it was right after January, it was Super Bowl weekend, and a huge blizzard hit. And my husband was traveling, my kids were little. And it was such a big blizzard, and I lived in a court that we couldn't get out for 3 days. And
Oh, gosh.
and I was like, oh my God.
I'm starting a business.
And I didn't have.
I'm not sure how that came out of there, but that's good.
Well, I'll tell you. So I was trying to literally dig myself out of this blizzard with my little kids, without a snowblower, I didn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And,
You're writing some help in the snow.
And I started looking through the Christmas cards I hadn't thrown away and passing. I stopped on Stacy's. I'm like, oh my God, I love her card. It was so
Like your family card.
Her family card.
Yeah.
But she also, that was a marketing tool.
Yeah, I would always trick out my holiday cards.
But it was
Like
so
Kardashians, yeah.
but it was so differentiated and so her and so good.
You'll have to share some of those if you don't mind.
Oh,
That would be
yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, okay, she has her own business. I want my own business. I came up with the whole idea and I want her to do my branding. And so I literally called her after I dug myself out of the blizzard and started a business that then Stacy and I would work together. It was called Simply Put, and it was helping, tell storytelling for businesses.
Yeah.
But Stacy and I started working together. It was like, I'm missing a partner, I'm missing the designs, I'm missing all of that. So
And it is nice to have somebody to bounce.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's magical.
It's wonderful.
So
Yeah.
much better than sitting by yourself staring at the walls.
Yeah.
Talking
So that's how her
Stuffed
cards,
animals.
Yeah.
all those tiny print designs came to me during the blizzard, and that's how we clicked.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And I think at the time too, I have been designing stationery and fabric and all kinds of artwork for kids and all kinds of stuff, but I just felt like I had more to share. Like I wanted my design footprint to grow in other places.
Yeah.
I never really knew where that was. And I remember after we started working together, we would say, like, I don't know where this is going to go, but this is like such an awesome synergy between us. It was like so easy.
Yeah.
Like when does that ever happen that
Yeah, people would always say, "Oh, I wouldn't want a partner." I'm like, "Oh my God, I wouldn't want to do this without a partner."
We
Yeah,
couldn't.
yeah.
And I think I say this all the time to people. They're like, how's it going? You guys have been together for so long. I'm like, it's amazing. I love her like a sister, but we never hang out outside of work.
You guys said that, yeah, when we first met.
I think
yeah,
that's
thought that
really
was
the
kind of
key. Like,
fascinating.
she's one of my best friends. She's the person I probably call when I need to cry or whatever. But like, our families don't hang out. We have this separation that allows us to just appreciate
Yeah.
and love each other for who we are, but it's not all the time. You know
that
what
would
I mean?
be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's almost like your best friend is with you during the day and then
Yeah.
you go home to your family. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do feel like I don't know what I would do without Stacy, because even when we're working, she helps me work out things in my personal life.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
this.
She's like, "I don't need to be at your house. I know what happened last night."
yeah.
Yeah, and I have 2 research partners that were kind of like that. And we get in a room and I feel like we could probably take over the world.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. It doesn't feel like any sort of work or schoolwork.
Yeah.
We just gel and that's
And that is the magic of women in business and working together,
Yeah.
because you could have you could be tired of the worst day, but you come in and you're just in each other's presence.
yeah.
And a creation happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a motivation. It's like, and I think it works well because like, this is just only human. Like, some days you're like down, you're not feeling as motivated, but then you're like, all right, shit, fine.
Yeah.
Let me go. Let's get
Yeah.
going. And then like other days she might not be, and maybe I'm revving up and ready to go. So it's just like this constant like bouncing of positive vibes and energy.
And I
it's-
always say, I love when Stacy sends me a design. I have no idea. It feels like Christmas
Oh my
morning.
gosh, yeah. Even when you guys would send me stuff, yeah.
You feel
I'm like, I have to be like sitting. I want like my laptop. I'm not looking at it on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling. And so like you're saying, I could have the worst day, and all of a sudden I'll get a text like, "I have a surprise for you." I'm like,
Yeah. Because and I am not discounting that, like, it's really difficult to do what you guys do. And and when you nail it, and especially something super complex, like some of the work that we've done, like, it's just amazing.
And it's amazing. We hope it's amazing for our clients, obviously, but it is so fulfilling for us too. Like, when we get off a call and we know we nailed it and the client is happy, it's like, yes, this is what this is supposed to. This is why we're doing this, because we love being able to like share our gifts and feel fulfilled, but then like helping somebody else feel
Yeah.
like they're empowered and
You guys
ready
make
to
it
grow.
look too easy, though. That's the only negative.
You said something really smart, and it's true. It is really complex. Our best projects are complex ones because we have a talent of taking what's complex and making it translatable to the people who need to hear it in the way they need to hear it. And that's not, is it just beautiful and eloquent? It's powerful.
Yeah.
Because it is complex and it is hard. I won't lie. Brand plan, like Stacy is the joke, when I start a brand plan process and I finish the interviews
Like,
and I'm
don't talk to
diving in
Heather.
and synthesizing.
Yeah, I'm like, you probably look
Stay
like
away
Albert
from-
Einstein right now, right? Like, your hair is all out. You probably haven't showered or talked to your
Because
family
I'm
in
like
5
in
days.
it. I'm
Yeah.
totally
And you
in
almost
it.
have to get it out. Yeah.
I have to
She
get
does.
it out. And she says, just take a break. I'm like, no, it's in me. It's got to come
Like,
out.
sometimes I'll call and be like, have you eaten today? Can you just like make sure you're, because
Yeah.
once she dives into like that strategy piece in the story, it like, she literally has to get it out
Yeah.
before she
bet.
can go on with her
Yeah.
regularly scheduled program.
Any advice because you work mostly with entrepreneurs, but also established companies, any advice on like when to start thinking about brand, or when is the right time to
From
engage you
the
guys?
very beginning.
Very beginning. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And so, but it's never too late. So I'd say we probably work with 2 kinds of clients, either startups, right from the beginning, blank slate, or there's a magic number and it's usually 10 years into business.
Oh.
The business is succeeding because it's a good idea, but they haven't built a brand and it starts to fail. And here's how it starts to fail.
fascinating.
They
Yeah.
start to have employees leave and steal their ideas because they haven't built a brand. They've built a commodity.
Yeah.
So it's easy to steal that idea. That's the other thing about emotion. It's really hard to replicate. So if you build your brand around emotional promise, someone can't just go away and steal that from you,
Yeah.
because you're not stealing a commodity. You're stealing a human. You can't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And so they start to have employees leave. They start to have a hard time attracting the right people. And then they start to bring their pricing down because they're trying to compete on price.
is the worst
Which is
space
the
to be in,
worst
yeah.
place to be in, because they're not competing on brand.
Yeah.
Emotion actually drives purchase choice. And this is where emotion isn't fluff. It drives purchase choice. So if you compete on emotion, you can charge a premium. And so they start bringing their prices down. And so it's that 10-year mark that always happens, and they need a reinvigoration
Interesting.
of their brand.
And this is agnostic of industry, right? I mean,
Yes.
it could be a hardware company,
It does
or
not
it could
matter.
be clothing or whatever.
Exactly,
Yeah.
the same truth supply. And that's when we know the person's probably not, if it's a different industry, they'll say, well, how do you know anything about this? Well, that we're exactly the people you need for this, because we're going to dive in and figure it out. When we know certain truths of all industries, and we're bright, we can figure it out. And then we can figure out what you're doing wrong. And so we always present, the findings of our listening tour can be a little bit difficult sometimes. It's not always a rosy story.
Yeah.
A lot of times is, here's what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And here's where your customers are confused.
Because I'm sure you identify other opportunities outside of brand that could be beneficial for them. And
Yeah,
it's sort
we
of
do
hard
that.
not to tell them
Yeah,
that.
we do that. We show them different opportunities for themselves. And that's up to them. And a lot of times they do it and have a lot of success.
Yeah.
So we feel proud of that.
Well, I feel like we could talk all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really want to thank you guys. And how can people find out more information about Klique or get a hold of you guys? Or
So they could go to our website, kliquecreative.com.
Klique, Klique.
KLIQUE.
Which I love, by the way. Yeah.
That was also a ESP moment for us. We were deciding on a name.
Stacy said it has to have a K sound.
I don't know why. I'm like, I don't know why, but K, it's got to have a K. And then,
Yeah.
And then we decided on Klique with a K.
Yeah.
And it was, we love it because it's our Klique.
Yeah.
It's our business.
And I
Klique.
do feel like there is a moment within doing brand where it clicks.
It clicks. And we're also helping our clients click with their customers. So
I love that.
Yeah. And your own click with yourself and what your goals are. Like DavidaJane, that's your master click.
Yes.
And,
I'm
that's,
obsessed.
yeah. So we're excited to be on that journey with you.
Yeah.
And see where it goes to.
All right. So
this is
last
fun.
question. So
Yeah.
what does the future hold for you guys in Klique?
I'm going to answer that two ways.
Okay.
See what Stacy says.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So we will always have Klique as a brand consultancy and do our work with people who really motivate us and we know we can bring value to. We love that. The beauty for us is we get to be more selective as we go
Yeah.
because we
And look for kindness, like
and
you
look
said.
for
Yeah.
kindness and create meaningful brands, and that will lead us to, we know a lot of amazing people and opportunities. We also have this other dream for ourselves where we want to create a Klique of something that we can sell.
Oh,
So we have a couple ideas brewing.
I love that.
And so it's all part of our same story.
But you'll still do work for me.
We'll still do work for you.
Oh my
we'll
gosh.
always have our clients.
Scare me.
And we have some ideas for our own separate Klique too.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be doing both of those 5 years from now. What do you think?
I agree.
Okay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing and being so open. It was so interesting. Like I said, we could talk all day, so really appreciate it.
This was
and
fun.
I
This
learned
was
stuff.
fun.
So
Thank you
fun.
so
Oh my
much.
gosh, so fun.
We're so proud of you.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
stop.
are.
No. All right, I'm hanging up. now.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.